Are you building a business, feeling the stress of all the pressures on you, and hungry to learn from other entrepreneurs? Then you're in the right place. You're listening to But First Principles, where we highlight the principles you need to win both at work and at life. Let's dive in. I'm really excited to have Sam Lydard here. She's the founder of Trying to Adult RVA and also recently Trying to Date RVA. And I thought that was a cool little story. If you want to share just how that came about briefly, and then we'll jump into your story.
Absolutely. Yeah. Trying to Date is our newest sister branch off of Trying to Adult. So Trying to Adult got started in October of 2021. So a little post-pandemic group.
Right.
Uh, had really great growth, really great, awesome people, great events. And there was almost this natural flow into what else are we trying to do as adults here. And the very simple one is a lot of people are trying to date. So it was kind of a natural progression to come up with another group that had a different niche and served a different community of people, while also still having fun, frequent events with the community.
Which is super cool. And I think there's kind of a cool little story behind Trying to Adults that started in 2021. So Trying to Date has grown out of that. But like, I guess there was like a Valentine's Day thing or something like that.
Yeah, so what happened was there I'd always been like poked for like what would you ever do a dating event or a singles night? And I stayed very firm on no. Trying to adult is only for making friends. We are not dating, we are not making anything weird here. We are not going to do networking. There's no business talk. It is for fun and friendship, and that's it. At the same time, I knew that I felt this looming need for wanting to have in real life connections, because dating apps are just a nightmare for people. That I was like, well, let me try this Valentine's Day event and see how it goes. If it goes well, we'll see what happens, but let's just see how it goes. And it went more than well. The event sold out 50 spots within 2 weeks. Everyone had an amazing time. And I realized, okay, there's a need here that is untapped.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to keep it separate from Trying to Adult RVA to delineate people that are there to make friends and people that are there to date, which is then what birthed the creation of Trying to Date RVA.
Gotcha. Okay. Actually, and I guess I was a little mixed up on my stories. I was thinking that Trying to Adult had started a Valentine's Day event that was sold out, but that was, yeah, the other way
The
around.
opposite.
Got it.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. Well, okay. Well, then that's what you're doing currently. Tell us like how you got here, a little bit about your background and sort of entrepreneurial journey, if you
Yeah.
will.
Absolutely. So, I moved to Richmond in 2018 for a corporate job. I was fresh out of college, got a nice job offer, moved down here. Richmond was great. I loved it, but I realized that making friends as an adult was difficult. You didn't have the school clubs to really help you make friends. There wasn't just the neighborhood people that you went out and hung out with. Like, it's a lot harder as an adult.
Yes.
As I was starting to kind of get settled in, then was hit with the pandemic, which made it even harder because not only was it hard, but now nobody's leaving their house. So it was even
Mhm.
more challenging to make in real life connections. So once things
Which,
started
by the
open,
way, for anyone who's a
yeah,
little older who's listening, in real life is also IRL, which is when you're texting, like a way to shorten it. So fun little millennial or even, Gen Z sort of thing. So just in case. Yeah.
that's right. That's
IRL.
right.
Right. Cool.
So when things started kind of lifting and we were starting to get back into this new normal, because I don't think it's ever been normal since, this new normal
Yeah,
of
absolutely
in
shifted. Yeah.
2021, I was like, okay, I gotta do something. I gotta try to meet people. So I had joined the Meetup app to look around
I was
for
curious
local
if there was any
groups.
kind of, yeah, yeah, right. Okay.
Exactly. And there was a lot, but they were very niche. It was like a hiking group or a photography group. And ironically, the one that I joined first was I had done my just finished my master's thesis on blockchain for supply chain management. And there was a Bitcoin group. And I was like, oh, this seems like a perfect
Perfect.
fit.
Right.
I showed up there, was not a perfect fit. I think I was exceeded my age by 20 years. I was the only female in the room, and I was like, this is cool, but I don't think this is where I'm gonna make friends.
A little awkward,
Um,
sure. Yeah.
yes. So I was like, there's all these niche things, but I just want to go do fun things, and fun could be different every day. It could be going to a brewery, it could be doing a cooking class, it could be going for a hike like these other groups. But I don't want to just do the same thing every
Kind of
time. And
pigeonholed, right? Okay.
yeah, and that's what didn't exist. So I was like, well, in the spirit of my small business owner mom, I was like, well, I'll just do it myself and figure it out. So I
I love
started
it.
my own
Yeah.
group, named it Trying to Adult, because that's kind of what we were doing, was like just trying to be an adult and do fun things that we can do. And the group got its start. I started just planning events that I wanted to do to see if anybody wanted to show up to do them with me. And they did. And kind of the moment I learned that I had something here was about 2 months into it. I had an event at Hotel Green, which is an indoor mini golf in downtown Richmond. And I had 30 people signed up, expecting to only have like 10. I remember like, oh no, what do I do with 30 people trying to go to mini golf? And that's when I realized, okay, I think I actually have something here, and we got to limit these events and have spots and have a structured organization, because there's a lot of people that have the same desire that I have.
Wow. That's cool. And actually, and anecdotally, I mean, it is really interesting. My wife and I have been very involved in church stuff and have had sort of natural networks from family and stuff. But we have a lot of friends. Both of us have a lot of friends, and we've talked about this, that once you get out of college, it's hard to explain to a college kid that, like, look, it gets really hard to make friends. Like, because we have a number of friends who have ended up kind of lonely, right? Um, and so yeah, like, even larger commentary on society. We kind of live in this like bubble suburban culture where, like, we're in our bubble house, we don't interact with our neighbors. We're in our little bubble cars, we don't interact with anyone around us as we're going to work. We go to work and we have our very restricted interactions, and especially if you're working from home and it's over Zoom and it's just for meetings, you know, and then you get home and basically that's what you do, and maybe there's some, once you have kids, if you have kids, like then you have some interactions with school stuff or whatever, but it's very restricted. You don't just naturally flow. There's not like gathering at the local green for music or something like that and meeting your neighbors and having whatever. So it makes perfect sense to me that there's a real need for it. And it's awesome that you're doing something about it. Um, okay. And you said blockchain was your degree. And so you're still working a job currently, but you got this going on. So can you share a little bit
I
about
do.
that?
Yeah, my career was a passion of mine, of working hard in school and getting to it, and I got it, and I do enjoy my day job. It's not like this is not, gonna eventually kind of outshine it. Like I enjoy my day job. I worked hard on it. I started working in supply chain in a corporate world, and I'm in procurement, which is a similar kind of offshoot of
Sure.
supply chain. And I really like my day job. It's a demanding day job and it's a lot of work. So it's not really like I have a ton of time to also do this, but I have a ton of passion to do this,
Yeah.
which is what keeps it thriving.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess from a business standpoint, well, let's before I was going to ask, like, what does kind of the business look like, but actually, um, the first thing a business needs is product market fit. You've got to know that there's a demand for what you've got, what you're offering, and that's what you just described, right? You discover there's this need in the market. Um, so, and I guess you've already described it. It wasn't like it was intentional. It was just you wanted to do this thing, and it turns out other people do too. Um, so what what do you do? Is there, like, are you building a business out of this?
Trying to, working on it, because there's a lot of effort and time that goes into it. And there's just, as we grow, there's more needs that come from it. So like one of the first needs that I identified out of it was we outgrew the Meetup app. There was stuff that
Okay.
events that required payments. And how I first started it was like, okay, here's how much the event cost. Here's my Venmo, my Cash App, and my PayPal.
Yeah.
And I was managing who was sending me a Venmo, and their Venmo name was different than their Meetup name.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, that was just so much. And there was just not infrastructure to support that type of model. So like one of the biggest first wins of like, okay, this is an actual organization that's going to require something to keep it going, was we needed a website, and websites aren't free. So there was something I needed to do in order to maintain that infrastructure. And as we continue to grow, like more and more needs for infrastructure keep popping up, which unfortunately comes with costs that we have to kind of sort through as well.
Yeah, exactly. And what are your are you kind of just feeling that out as you go along, or do you have some kind of like business plan for it, or what does that look like?
Yeah, a little bit of both. It's a weird mix, knowing that this was kind of like a passion that became
Sure.
a business. And I also want to make sure that this is something that's for building community, that I don't want anybody in the community to feel that they cannot simply, afford to make friends. So I want there to be different revenue options, like such as, we have a really great following on social media now because people sometimes just follow us to see what's happening in Richmond, whether or not they join us for an event or not. So, whether that be partnering with other Richmond businesses that are looking to get their name out with the audience that I have. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to connect with different revenue streams to make this a profitable and successful kind of small business while not taking away from the community it's trying to build.
That's awesome. So, yeah, tell us. So, why do you then? It sounds like you're busy, first of all.
Absolutely.
Why did you then start trying to date? And I mean you kind of described it, but like, like how much extra workload is that? And like why'd you take the leap? Is it just because like, well, if there's a need, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah. The short answer is I don't know how to say no to a good idea. The long answer is it was a really good need. There was a lot of interest in it. I think actually people are more inclined to invest money in finding dating connections versus friendship connections, whatever that personal motivation would be. So when I was trying to work through a brand of finding opportunities to sustain and grow and all that, dating felt like a natural fit just because of the like human motivation to
Yeah,
contribute to that type of organization.
gotcha. And so what I guess long term, what do you feel like would be the larger vision for what you want to do? I mean, you said you love your day job. I mean, you are running an organization called Trying to Date. So are you looking to be married? Are you like what's your larger vision?
For both of them, I almost like, especially for trying to adult, ironically, one of my best friends right now, I met at the very first trying to date event, I mean, trying to adult event ever,
Ah,
which was
yeah.
5 people. And it was at James River Cellars. But one of my best friends now was actually there. So I joke and say, like, I could have just stopped after the first event. Like, I achieved what I did this for in the
Yeah,
first
you found a
event.
friend,
But
right?
here we are.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of become this really, awesome project. And while supply chain and procurement are fun and corporate life is fun, is a great career for me, you can't quite compare supply chain of manufactured goods to making human connections and friendships blossom. That's a little bit more
Mm.
rewarding. So I would love to continue to grow. If I brought a lot to Richmond. I would like to continue bringing it to Richmond. I think some really awesome possibilities would be to extend to other cities. I've had people, I even had somebody that moved here from Miami that had said, like, wow, I wish we had something like this in Miami. This would be great. And I'm just like, I can't imagine Miami would need this when it's just little Richmond here, but truly anyone anywhere is looking for connection. So if you could almost
Mm.
um, recreate this in different cities to create this opportunity and almost even have a familiarity with the name of trying to adult, with people being so movable with their jobs lately. They're moving to do new cities all the time, that if you just knew, like, hey, I'm going to a new city, but I know it's going to be fine because trying to adult such and such is here and I'll find my people, that would be a really awesome opportunity for me and something that would be really exciting.
I mean, I think that's awesome because part of what I'm trying to do with the podcast is sort of highlight businesses at different stages and have some of my guests who are further along and can kind of look back on how they did it, and then those who are a little bit earlier in the process, to project like, well, how would I get there, right? And if you've gotten as far as you've gotten so far, there is already some history, right? Some things that have worked, and um, so there's there's a journey, right? Being an entrepreneur and growing a company and deciding how quickly you want to grow and what kind of growth you want to, uh, to to develop, right? And um, and I do think, well, I've said this a number of times on the podcast. I believe I feel like I repeat this a lot, but I always say there's two rules in business. The first rule is make an impact, which means, business exists to increase people's quality of life. And that can be pretty close to like a spiritual, quality of life thing, right? In fact, I have a friend who has like religious goods and stuff. And so that's, it's like really is more oriented towards the spiritual. And that could be very like mundane, widgets for trucks or whatever, right? But either way, it increases people's quality of life. And you also have a huge impact if you have employees and, the actual relationships you have with customers and all that stuff, right? Um, so the first rule of business is to make an impact. The second rule of business is that you also need to make a profit doing it. Because if you don't make a profit, then you're just a charity. And if you're only making a profit and not making an impact, then you're a scam, right?
Yep.
But I love that this is like a passion. You want to make this, you recognize the human need for connection. And in a certain sense, our culture and our society is desperate for connection. And so, like, how can we meet that need? And this is a business. So like, we have to charge for what we do, and there's a certain infrastructure that's required. Um, so do you feel like you would hire somebody to take the next step, or what would be what do you see as the next steps?
Yeah, so yes, and so I actually have a wonderful. I learned very quickly when I kept selling at events and making more events, I had to be at these events. And when I was having,
Yeah,
15 events a month, I was
right.
like, I don't have time to do laundry. What am I going to do with all these events I have to be at and be a host? So that was almost one of my challenges. I was like, how am I going to do this? Like, who's going to have the same passion that I do? And I just asked around and kind of opened up the opportunity and found like, no, there's a lot of people that are really excited at what I'm doing and want to support the same mission I have. So I have a stellar volunteer team now of different roles.
Nice. Good for you. Yeah.
The most bountiful one I have are ambassadors. They are my event hosts. So I do the back end of all the planning and the tickets and all the back end stuff, and they host the event, which is so important that I found for successful events is having that person that makes that experience important and makes it
Yeah, for
intentional
sure.
and helps get through that first level of anxiety that you have with showing up by yourself for the first time. Like those hosts do so much to make that a great experience for people. So I have an amazing team of hosts. I also have some event leads. So some of our reoccurring events like movie nights or book club or karaoke, I have an event lead that is just responsible for planning that event every month because it's such a popular event and they continue to find new places and new opportunities. So I have a really awesome team of volunteers that help me as I've kind of outgrown what I can do as one person. And I, would love to continue that and continue, rewarding them even more than just my amazing thank you that I can give them right
Yeah,
now.
that's right. You're great.
Yeah. And then like, saying when we moved to cities, I haven't quite figured out how to be in two places at one time yet. Still working on that. So if that continues to grow, I'm going to need support maintaining established cities and starting new cities. So there's definitely going to be an opportunity to bring on more people.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, again, I've been pretty involved in church stuff and sometimes very involved in church stuff and running an army of volunteers, which is a little different from having a core team of employees, right? That's it's
Sure.
there's some different dynamics there, but it's really incredible what volunteers can do, and that's great that you're organizing things so that people continue to have a really positive experience and sort of like the user experience, right? UX is very popular these days, but that's the idea, right?
Sure. And I get to, use learnings I've learned in the corporate world to make this successful, such as like, I wrote up a whole event planning checklist. Like, here's the checklist you run through when you're planning an event, because this is what I figured out works. This is what I figured out needs to be done. Run through this checklist and it'll be easy for you to do. Or if there's a training video, like I'll record myself doing it once so that they can keep reviewing it. And as I get new volunteers, they can watch it instead of me having to spend an hour 25 different times. It's an hour one time, and I can just disseminate that information to help bring people up to speed.
That's perfect. I mean, that's what I help business owners to do is to, in part, I mean, there's a number of different areas that I work with, but like create SOPs. I mean, what you're describing is like SOPs, right? And trying to create a system like a repeatable processes that'll more or less run themselves as long as people are, you know, pulling the trigger or following the steps. Um, that's what allows a business to grow because you can't just do it manually over and over again. It's got to be as automated as possible, right? Um, so actually, this question just came to mind as you were speaking, and it's kind of the opposite of what I usually ask. I usually ask, guests, what are some lessons you want to hand on to other people who are maybe a few steps behind you, right? But here's actually a different angle, and I'd love to hear, your perspective on that question. But first, um, what do you think business owners who are a few years ahead of you and maybe of an older generation, what do you think they could learn from the success that you're sort of having at this grassroots level? What are some things do you, and this is really an open-ended question. If, maybe there's nothing, maybe there is something. What do you think that maybe an older generation of leaders could learn from what you're seeing in this, little business?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of avenues I could kind of take that question.
Hmm.
But the way I kind of want to take it is like don't lose the principles if that's what we're since we're that's what we're talking about here is like don't lose the principles because with
Hmm.
my group I have new people every single day. And while I've been a part of this group for 3 years and I've seen the growth and I know how simple things like RSVPing on a website work, there's going to be somebody that doesn't know it every day. And sometimes for like somebody like me, like that could be frustrating. I'm like, "Ugh, just read it. Like I put it there or
Yeah,
just like do the
right.
steps." But like that's kind of the part of having a business is getting new people all the time that you have to remember to include those new people and think of them and think of what they're how they're seeing your business for the first time to make sure they don't get left behind just because you're past where they are. So I think that's the really important one, and I catch myself on that a lot. And even as simple as like, I catch my volunteers sometimes. You see your favorite people at an event that have been to like 5 events, and you're like, "Hey, it's so good to see you." And there's this other person that's brand new. That's the person you need to talk to because they're new and they need a little extra push to feel connected to this. So that's what's most important is like don't forget the principles and don't forget these new people that are actually the crucial part of growing your business because they are new growth by just getting in your head of just being used to your routine.
Oof, like, yes. I mean, really, like, I am passionate about first principles, right? Getting to the basics of life and business that, like the masters of anything. I mean, like Kobe Bryant in basketball or, Jeff Bezos in business or whatever, whoever you look to, right? Um, so much of their success was just being disciplined enough to keep coming back to the basics and just doing the basics again and again and again. The consistency, right? And also like, and just that the basics are the foundation. They move 90%, they do 90% of the work, right? And it's not even 80/20. It's 10/90, right? 10% of the effort does 90% of the work. Um, so I mean, I love that. And I also, I think kind of running throughout this whole thing is like just the importance of connection. I mean, that's what, this little business is all about. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how you build culture. That's how you build a great team is just continuing to connect, going out to the people who are not connecting or who are scared or who are new or who are, like whatever, intimidated. Um, yeah. So, focused on making connection with people. Um, And how about like a difference and there's a different you said there's a couple different directions you go. There's another angle also differences in generations. Have you seen anything like that? Have you I mean just knowing as much as you're interacting with folks of I venture to say our generation, sort of millennials, right? Um, what uh do you see any disconnect between people's sort of corporate life and social life, or it's something like anything along those lines, or small, even better if they're working for small businesses, right?
would really see that so much. I would say, because, we have a target range of like 20s and 30s is what we kind of cater to, which is
Hmm.
kind of our bread and butter. And there we have people outside those age ranges that join us. But like interacting with them almost is indifferent for us because our goal is to appeal to the kind of the person that wants to make connection, and that person's going to join if they find whatever that event is to be connected to them anyways. So you're really not going to get somebody there that doesn't feel connected. There's always going to be people that like don't understand how systems work, and sometimes that can be generationally caused by just like not being involved with social media, not being well versed on how to use a QR code and things like that. But
So systems isn't like
they've been
technology,
very
like
minor things,
yeah,
not
right.
like big challenges that result from that, at least not in my experience.
Yeah, well, and again, that kind of speaks to the fundamentals, the basics that like we all share as human beings. Like this, like whatever tool you happen to be using to facilitate it, the real meat of it is you know every person already has that within them. Like I don't know if it's a weird way of saying it, but
Yeah,
is that am I getting
exactly.
that
Yep.
right? Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, cool. So, what was the other thing that I was gonna? Oh yeah, so okay, like if someone's just starting out with some, like they have this idea, like, hey, I want to try this thing, and maybe I'll just organize it myself. What advice would you give?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. One is like make sure you have a passion for it first. I was planning events that I wanted to do because if I got there and nobody else showed up, okay, I'm still where I want to be anyways. I'm still going to
Yeah.
be at this winery and having a good time.
Right.
And if people want to go, that's awesome. So make sure it's something that you want to actually show up for. Sometimes I think we're so caught up in like, what would the consumer want? What should I
Mm,
do? And while that's great, if you don't have a passion for yourself, you're going to lose interest and burn out quickly. And some of, these things take a while to build, and it took a little bit. It actually took less than I thought, but
mm,
like I said, my first event had 4 people. Like I really didn't go over 10
mm,
people until after that first month. So those first couple events were a little wonky, but it was fine because I was doing what I wanted to do. So make sure you kind of have that passion to keep you going
mm,
to get the traction you need to get started.
mm,
Um, and then second point is like listen to criticism, but don't take every piece of criticism. There everyone's gonna have opinions, especially I in my space, I cannot tell you how many event recommendations I got, and it's because people want to do things with friends,
sure.
and they think the way to do that is to recommend it so that it happens. And I've had some really great recommendations, I've had some not so great recommendations, but like some of them have helped me grow and become better. And I'm like, oh, that's actually something I didn't consider. Glad to do it. But then some things I'm like, I don't think that really fits for us, but thank you for giving to me anyway. So like really, filter through the feedback and criticism you get and choose, don't ignore all of it because some of it has worth, but also don't listen to all of it either.
And yeah, I mean, I think that's a huge part of leadership is first of all being open to feedback and making sure that you don't insulate yourself. You don't, there are ways that, especially as you build a business, you can actually stop hearing the feedback because you're just interacting, just with your leadership team or your, smaller team. Um, but to find ways, um, I mean, it's very natural for your business because of the very nature of kind of the social media and connection thing. But, I'm just thinking of like I've worked with some auto repair shops, right? And like it can be surprisingly easy, as small as an auto repair shop could be. There can easily develop like a wall between like the technicians and sort of the more white collar, folks. Those kinds of things. You have to look for ways to get feedback. But also, I mean, and that's solid gold as far as I'm concerned. Like, but you also have to be really careful that you don't get sucked into the feedback. Um, that depending on what your personality is and your own temperament, like it can be really hard to hear some hard feedback. Um,
Oh yeah, my feelings have gotten hurt for sure
yeah,
running this business by somebody I've never met that was through a screen. Like it
yeah,
hurts.
right.
But then you're like it's actually not that big of a deal there's been 20 people that had an amazing experience. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, exactly. And that's actually that has everything to do with mindset, and your beliefs. What do you actually believe? Am I going to believe the haters, right?
Yep.
Or am I going to believe that like actually I have a lot to offer and there's tremendous value to what I'm doing and who I am. Um, yeah, so okay. So do what you're passionate about and also don't take the feedback too hard, too seriously, but do take the feedback.
Sure. Yep.
Um, and then with yeah, the growth that you're experiencing, um, what you what do you wish um, could be? I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time formulating this as I stumble through. Um, I've already asked where do you want to go from here, but I guess what in what ways do you think this could really be something big? Like what, I asked about vision, right? Um, but what do you wish you could snap your fingers, uh, suddenly could appear across the land, right? In terms of social interactions and in terms of like maybe small businesses like this, or maybe one big business, what would you love to see just suddenly appear?
Yeah, I would love for people to think about connection differently. We've gotten so used to behind our phones,
Yeah.
which has been a great social media, great tool. Dating apps, great tool. Online dating, um, Eventbrite to find events going on. Like these are all really great tools, but they also have taken away like the part about connecting in real life. So
Yeah.
I would love
Yeah.
to create a space where people feel more comfortable being themselves, not behind a phone, and they can go to community events. And people, you ask different generations, like, how do you meet someone if we're going to like the dating route? And like it was like you find them at a bar, you find them at a club, and you're like, okay, that doesn't happen anymore. You can go to a bar and not talk to anyone because you have no idea what their relationship status is or their willingness to date, and it's intimidating. But on the other side, dating apps are superficial at times and hard. So, like, what's the in between? And the in between is an
Hmm.
event that's set up for the people that you're looking for, whether you're looking for friendships, while you're looking for a dating relationship, like finding a community that you're looking for and being able to just actually connect in real life, not behind a phone screen. So that's what I would like, is to have these more genuine in real life connections be more feasible
Hmm.
and less intimidating, less scary, less disappointing,
Hmm.
and less negative that seems to come from behind the screen.
I love that. Thank you for saving my awkward stumbling over my own words, but like no, that's fantastic. That makes perfect sense and I think it sums it up beautifully, like what you're
Yeah, like
trying
if
to
you
do.
think, Bumble has three avenues. You can do like Bumble dating, Bumble BFF, or Bumble networking. Great tools and great to kind of swipe, but you're doing it behind a screen. I would almost like to do like almost an in-person equivalent where like here's an event, you're going to show up and meet 20 people that are also looking to make friendships. All you got to do is be yourself and talk to them and play bowling while you're at it. Or here's a room of 50 singles. Everyone's kind of available. Just talk to them, figure out what their preferences are, and the magic will happen after that. So that's kind of how I think of it.
Again, I think that's fantastic. And also just the idea of like, yes, you have to have courage, but we can also provide a space where like you don't it's not this incredibly intimidating, situation of like dark bar with some strange dude, kind of thing, right?
Exactly.
Um, while still achieving the depth that is very hard to get from like a dating app. So that's again, I just think that's a fantastic summary of what you're trying to do. Okay, so last question is just simply, how do people get a hold of you if they're interested in any of this stuff, and who do you want to connect with?
Absolutely. So the best way to find us is our website, trying to adult RVA.com. But you also can find us in just about every social. So we've got pages and groups on Facebook. You can search trying to adult or trying to date. We also have an Instagram page, same thing, and also on the Meetup app. So basically, anywhere you kind of want to check in and follow along with us, you can follow us along there. Basically, who we're looking for is anyone in the Richmond area that's either looking for friends or more. If you're looking for friends, trying to adult RVA is the spot for you. We'll do fun events, cooking classes, breweries. Perfume making is one that's coming up very shortly. So, lots of fun things for you just to get out and have fun. And then if you're looking for something more and you're tired of the endless swiping or getting ghosted or getting stood up, like we have people that are ready to date and they will show up at an event and you can meet them in real life. So kind of get out of that rut and show up to meet some really awesome people. So whatever your niche is, whatever you're looking for, if you're in Richmond, we've got it for you.
Love it. It almost sounds like a sales pitch. Like you practiced talking about this before. That's great. Yeah. Yeah, you know how to present it. That's fantastic. So anywhere on the socials, trying to adult RVA.
That's right.
Cool. Okay. Well, great. Sam, it's been a lot of fun talking with you. A little bit different kind of business than like I usually speak with, but like love it. So it's very cool.
Thanks so much. Yeah, this was fun. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.